Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sage Dragon Show. I'm your host, Shaquana, and I discuss books. I love to read, and I have a joy of reading thought provoking books and bringing them to bigger audiences and sharing the themes about these books with you all and discussing them. And I am excited about today's episode. I'm always excited because if I don't feel it, I'm not doing it. But I'm really excited about this and I'll get into it a little bit more. Happy Saturday to everyone. I know it's been a very intense week here in the United States for us. And today I want us to have some joy and discuss some books. Thank you all to everyone who has been engaging with Sage Dragon. The episodes are on YouTube and various streaming sites. Shout out to the Real HD Network that helps to produce the show. And please like, subscribe, and share. If you know people that like to read, that like books, please share this show platform with them. And let's get into today. So today's episode, and actually it's going to be a two-part series. We are celebrating the works of three bold Latina writers and four amazing novels in recognition of National Hispanic Heritage Month. National Hispanic Heritage Month starts on September 15th every year, and it goes to October 15th. So it technically starts Monday, so we're right in time with it. And these authors I'll be getting into as the um, as the episode progresses, but they are Melissa Aquino, Jito Gonzalez. Two of her books I'm going to cover, and Nadir Selvis Natera. And I hope I'm pronouncing their names correctly. Um, a little bit more about National Hispanic Heritage Month. The National Council of Hispanic Employment Program Managers created this poster. There it is. Yeah. And we have permission. They're saying that different people that are celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month have the permission to post the poster. They just want to make sure that when you post it, you do the proper citation. And the theme this year, because every year they pick a different theme, is collective heritage, honoring the past, inspiring the future, which I was like, wow, that's cool because a lot of the books that I'm covering and the authors, the themes of those books, though they are completely different works of fiction and different plot points, have that thread of honoring the past and as well as the future. And I think it's because that Hispanic community, those are very important values for them. And I am hoping that I get some of my Latina friends. Fun fact, when I was in college, I went to Hofstra University and I had some very close friends that we were all suite mates. Dana and Cindy, and all of their friends would come over. And at Hofstra at the time, we had a lot of it's in New York City, it's in Long Island. So you get the Black Americans, you had your Caribbeans, like my roommate is Trinidadian and Grenadian, and my suite mates is Puerto Rican, and my people in my dorms were Dominicans, and very close friends with Haitians, people from the continent, Jewish. I had Jewish classmates. It was a different, and it was the 90s. And I'm not saying that we didn't have clashes and have intense conversations about like race and ethnicity. But I guess, I don't know, being in New York City when you're around so many different cultures, it's a different kind of common ground too that we had. Like we would go to each other's parties, go to each other's cultural activities, and I just really feel that passion for celebrating my culture and not feeling like just because I'm proud of my culture, Black and Indigenous, that it means that I don't want to learn about and celebrate other people's cultures. I mean, so that's what we're going to be doing this month and with the series. So I'm really hoping that I can get people participating from these Latina and Latina backgrounds, and you join in on a discussion. So before we get into more of the books that I'm going to review, I'm going to share some more book news. So last week I talked about this. Rochester Reads, which is the city that I'm in, they do every year, they select a book that they want the whole city to read at the same time. And then they have an event where they bring the author in, and they'll do like a celebration. It'll be at a nice place. I think this year it's going to be at the Memorial Art Gallery. This year's selection is called Soil: The Story of a Black Mother's Garden by Camille T. Dungy. And I did order the book from Writers and Books, and I'll be picking it up today. So even if you're not in Rochester, I want to encourage you to pick that book up and read it. And I'm looking forward to possibly doing a review on it once I've had a chance to read it. In other book news, President Obama, he released his 2025 summer reads book list. Every year he releases his like the music he's listening to, the podcast he's checking out, and his book reads. And if it's one thing President Barack is going to do, I mean, I can't act like I know him like that, but I predicted that an S.A. Cosby book was going to be on his list because that's like one of his favorite authors. Every time S.A. Cosby has a new book over the last several years, they make his list. And sure enough, King of Ashes deservingly made his list. Out of all the books on this list, Mark Twain, The Book of Records, Abundance, King of Ashes, Rosarita, The Buffalo Hunters, A Marriage at Sea, Audition, Who is Government, and The Siren's Call. King of Ashes is the only one I've read. I did do some searches just because some of the titles were interesting to me, and the Rosarita looks good. Has anyone read that? Anyone out there listening? Also, has anyone out there read any of the books on the president's list? Let me know. Drop it in the chat. Okay. Also, excitingly, in book news, the National Book Foundation released their drum roll of the 2025 National Book Award finalists. So every year they have a big award. It's like the Grammys of books. And but first, what they do is a bunch of people nominate books, and they have a distinguished panel of judges that narrows down the books to 10 books. And that's the long list. And it's an honor to be included out of hundreds of books in the long list. Then they take that long list and narrow it down to a top 5. And then at the National Book Awards, which happens in November, they announce the winner. So like last year, James, which was a huge book, very big book in literary world, won in fiction. But I was going to show you all some of the books that made the long list this year because they look like some bangers. So in the non let's see, nonfiction category, you got the autobiography of H. Lan Tao Lam by Lano Lynn. You got Run the Song, Running About Listening by Ben Ratliff. Words of the State, The Long Shadow of American Foster Care. Mm. Wards of the State by Claudia Rowe. When It All Burns, Fighting Fire in a Transformed World by Thomas. And The Saltstone, Seasons of a Shepherd's Life. There's also One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This. That's an interesting title. Omar El Akkad. Black Moses, A Saga of Ambition and the Fight for a Black State by Caleb Gale. Motherland, A Feminist History of Modern Russia from Revolution to Autocracy by Julia Ioff. For the Sun, After Long Nights, The Story of Iran's Women's-Led Uprising by Fatima Jamapour Nilo Tabrizi. Things in Nature Merely Grow by Yuan Lee. Has anyone read any of those books? That's the nonfiction category. And congratulations to all of those authors for their finalist selection. In the poetry category, there's Death Does Not End at the Sea by Gabenga Adesina. The New Economy by Gabrielle Calvacarisi. Becoming Ghost by Kathy Lynn Che. Scorched Earth by Tiana Clark. Death of the First Idea by Ricky Laurentis. Gold Leaf Place by Esther Lynn. Stay Dead by Natalie Shapiro. I Do Know Some Things by Richard Silkin. The Intentions of Thunder, New and Selected Poems by Patricia Smith. And Terror Counter by Fuente Nissan. Congratulations to all of the poets on their selection. In the translating literature category, which is literature from other cultures that gets translated, you have On the Calculation of Volume by Sova Ball. The Queen of Swords by Jasmina Barrera. We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabazon Kamuda. The Remembered Soldier by Anuet Danje. Hunchback, Sahu Achikawa. We Computers, a Gazo novel, Hamid Ismaval. We Do Not Part by Han Kong. Sleep Phase by Muhammad Ka. Perfection, Vecino Latronico. Sad Tiger Negocino. I am so sorry if I butchered those name pronunciations because they are from all places in the world. I was trying though. In the young people's literature, they've got some really great books. Maria Dolores Aguila, A Sea of Lemon Trees, The Corrido. The Corruption of Hollis Brown by Kate Ingram. The Incredibly Human Henson Blaze by Derek Barnes. A Bird in the Air Means We Can Still Breathe by Mahogany Brown. A World Worth Saving by Kyle Lukoff. The Leaving Room by Amber McBride. The Teacher of Nomad Land, a World War II story by Daniel Nayeri. Truth Is by Hannah Sawyer. Song of a Blackbird by Maria Van Leeshot. And E.B. Zobi, Ken, I'm sorry, by E.B. Zobi. And that's the Young People's Literature Top 10. And finally, the fiction category, 2025 long lists are The True Story of Raha the Gullible and His Mother by Rabi Alamendi. Flashlight by Susan Choi. The Wilderness by Angela Flerner, The Sisters by Honus Hassan Kamiri, A Guardian and a Thief, Mega Majuna, Only Son, Kevin Moffett, The Antidote by Karen Russell, North's Son, or The Voyage of the Whale Ship Esther by Ethan Rutherford, Palavar by Brian Washington, and The Pelican Child by Joy Williams. Congratulations to all of them. And if you go onto the National Book Foundation's website, you can read about all of the awardees, and you can also get a digital ticket to the actual award ceremony that's going to be taking place in New York City at Cabrini Wall Street. It's a nice event. They have dinner and they select the winner. All of the winners get $10,000. All of I think the top five get $1,000. They get a beautiful bronze statue, the winners. And then they also are, part of this organization where they get all of their future books promoted. So, and the funny thing was, as I was reading the 2025 list, I'm like, I haven't read any of these books. Isn't that funny? And as much as I'm reading, and that's what's so amazing about, books, because it's so many books that, you're like, wow. But I do want to read at least a couple of these titles. And similarly, like I'm still reading books that were finalists and winners from maybe 2023 or 2024. And I think that's okay because the whole organization's goal is to try to keep reading and books at the forefront of culture. All right. So now we getting into today's episode. We are going to dive into uh, some books. So first up is a book called Carmen and Grace by Melissa Kahn Aquino. And I'm going to do an author spotlight. Melissa Coast Aquino, she's a Puerto Rican roots writer from the Bronx. She's associate professor at Bronx Community College. She received her MFA from the City College of New York, CUNY, and her PhD from the Graduate Center in English. She's a proud Vona, Orejo, and Hedgebrook alumna. Her fiction is represented by Samoya Roberts, and this is her first novel, which was the one that I read, Carmen and Grace, was published in 2023. When I was doing some research on her, I came across this short story that she wrote called The Bronx, a Love Story. And those are, if anyone is watching the live, you'll see a picture of these two good-looking young people. Those were her parents. They were young. They were like 17. And it's a really heartfelt story. If you go on to her website, you can read it. And she talks about like her parents migrating from Puerto Rico and um, their beauty, but also their struggles. And it was really kind of, I'm like, wow, that should be. I hope that is going to be like a book. But the other part that I found cool about her background was she was talking about growing up and being raised by her grandmother because of some things that happened with her parents. And she used to have to just stay in her apartment in the Bronx and read. So Black women writers like Alice Walker and Toni Morrison and Audre Lorde were a big part of her beginnings as a reader because she preferred to like stay inside and read by the fire escape. And most of the books that she read, she really couldn't relate to. They were like the Nancy Drew mysteries and some books about being in middle class suburbs. But then she came across this book called Ludell by Brenda Scott Wilkinson. which she mentions in the book Carmen and Grace, and it's about a young Black girl who was being raised by her grandmother. And she said that there's a part of it where Ludell isn't feeling well, and her grandmother rubs her down with some Vicks. And as she was reading it, she just felt like a connection to her. And the article was talking about how years later, when she published Carmen and Grace, she met Brenda Wilkinson, who's now lives down in Georgia. But does anyone out there remember that book? When I heard the reference to it, I was like, yeah. I pulled it up on a later version of my presentation, so I can't show it right now. But check that book out. And if you have any young girls in your life, I think it will be a great book to like introduce to them to read, all of all backgrounds, because I really think that we should try to encourage our young kids to read books about other children's backgrounds. So to get into a little bit more about the Carmen and Grace story, I'm going to show a clip right now from a part of the book. Hold on a moment. Yeah, so I have it right here. It's really, really, let me try to see. See that? I love that cover. Very beautiful artwork. She had me at the very first part of it. There's a section called Walking the Spiral. So I want to play a little bit of that and then we'll get into the plot.
And ended by saying, "Sometimes you have to cut off your own feet to stop the crazy dance you've been doing. Don't worry, they grow back." We were there in our same khaki suits of armor, acting like we cared, or like we didn't, depending on how we rolled and how close to getting out we felt. How close we felt, I had learned, had nothing to do with the date that we were given. There were girls leaving tomorrow who felt like they were going home to something worse than what they had in here. The very guy who beat their ass and got them thrown into jail would be picking them up. It was crazy, but true. The feeling of close to getting out had a lot to do with already feeling free. It was about cultivating abandoned gardens by planting seeds where nothing had grown in a long time, if ever. It wasn't easy to do or feel in here, but people did it and showed others how to find it for themselves. I felt close and ready. I had been a goody two-shoes once. It was a long time ago, but my body still remembered. So I leaned forward, put on my listening face, and folded my hands on the desk. Just like third grade. The teeth suckers and groaners were sitting in the back row, just like high school. They were about to start their shit when she took a deep breath in and opened her arms out to us. "I am so grateful you invited me here. Thank you." A few laughed because, of course, none of us had invited her, and she knew it. Instead of responding, she turned and underlined, "Instinct injured," with a bunch of wiggly lines on the board behind her. She looked around the room, then said, "You are all here because of something you did, in addition to a lot of things you had nothing to do with. The question is, what will you do with the time you have left when you get out?" She caught us off guard by saying there were things we had nothing to do with. It hit a nerve. We all felt that way, but didn't think anyone else believed it or cared. Walking around the tiny room as if it was the great outdoors, stretching her arms and taking big, deep breaths like the air was the cleanest she had ever taken in. She looked genuinely happy to be there. she had our attention. At some
All right. So that is from a clip in the beginning part of the book. So Carmen and Grace. It's about these two cousins who grow up in the Bronx, and the book is written in from two perspectives: the perspective of Carmen and then the perspective of Grace. Now that introduction, Carmen is in prison. She is finishing up her sentence, and she's getting ready to get out. And this woman who's like a social worker, or I don't know, they didn't say what exactly her title was, but she had this kind of like healing, but yet at the same time, tell it like it is, what type of presence. And she comes in and talks to these women about preparing themselves for getting out of prison and going back into the world. So she drew the spiral, and she told them to identify a person that they think is responsible for them, a key reason why they're in prison. Like she said, there's always a person. But she didn't want them to dwell on that person. Then she said to name one or two people that you want to improve your life for. Then she told them to draw a picture of themselves in their most beautiful version of themselves and really be generous with how they describe themselves. If they want jewelry, if they want the fanciest clothes. And I was like, wow, like she was really walking them through these exercises of healing, self love, accountability. So Carmen starts to reflect on her life and how she got into prison. She was part of this. So her and Grace they were abandoned as children. Both of their mother's sisters got into like drug addiction, and they were living with their grandmothers at different times, but they both had similar realities. And they end up getting pulled into this drug ring, this illegal ring in the Bronx. And it's run by a woman named Donna Durga. And Donna took Grace in when she was like 16 years old. And Grace, really, Donna's son, he was interested in Grace, but she was too young. And they kind of groomed her. They started grooming her, but Donna put her in, took her. She told her son he wasn't allowed to date her until she became a full adult. She put her in private school. She sent her to college. She bought her a car. She took her out of poverty. And Donna was like this woman in the neighborhood, these neighborhoods of the Bronx. People didn't F with her. She had a, she was, a, she was doing illegal activity, but she also had legitimate businesses. And she would help people in the neighborhood that ran into problems. So Grace ends up having all this loyalty to Donna, but then Donna's going to get killed. And during the time that she's killed, there's this pull between Grace and Carmen about the future, because Carmen realizes that she's pregnant, she's in love, she doesn't want to stay in this life, but she's afraid. I have another clip that the author talks about that I want to share with you all a little bit more about, like the synopsis. Can we
But
play that?
first, we have a guest.
Yes. Hey,
Hi there.
welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm just
Oh
taken with this story.
Oh, I'm
Thank
so glad you are on.
you. Oh my gosh. I am so I can't wait to get this book. I am so taken with this story.
It's a good one. It's like really, you can feel the intensity. There's a part in the book, like when Carmen is talking about the murder happened, and she's pregnant. She doesn't want to tell anyone that she's pregnant because that makes her even more vulnerable. She has to pick up this woman named Red, who was another part of their crew who had left from the airport. So she's driving through the Cross Bronx and she picks her up from JFK. And this is set, I think, the nine, is it part? I think it was like the late 90s. So as they were describing it, I felt like I could feel her fear.
Hmm.
Also, all of the, the excitement and the friendship. It's good.
It
Um,
sounds so good. And I'm like, I can relate to this, like as you're describing all of the her getting caught up and what's happening and whatnot. I'm like, okay, I have got to read this book. And your description of this, I don't know if it's like the workshop or her drawing the spiral and the
yeah.
future, it's like a futuristic exercise for them to imagine what your future self would look like in your ideal mind. Like you said, if it's jewelry, if it's a relationship, like I'm just thinking of like the futuristic Afrofuturism, or those concepts of us identifying our future selves. Like that just really resonates for me.
Oh my God. Thank you for and then the fact that it was in a women's prison because
Right.
they were so used to the way that the book Carmen was saying, people come in all the time,
Hmm.
but they don't talk to them like that. They were
Hmm.
saying that they mainly either talk down on them or just
Hmm.
they say the
Hmm.
same old cliche stuff. And
Hmm.
they were saying she came in like, for one, she wasn't afraid of them.
Right.
And so she wasn't really gonna be like sugarcoating stuff. Like,
Hmm.
you're in here and it's probably some stuff you did.
Hmm.
Yet she had compassion at the same time. And then I was like drawn to that because I don't know much about that world, what it's
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
to be a woman incarcerated
Hmm.
and to
Hmm.
have had children and have been separated from them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that was the very start of it. And then she flashes back. So yeah, it's that
I'm so
that's
curious about the authors. I mean, I know you're a writer as well, and I'm curious about the authors. Like, is this her first novel? Is this her
mhm.
second? And like, what was her inspiration for writing the story? This is it's unique.
Yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
is unique. Yeah, this was her first. She teaches in creative writing at CUNY, but this was her first book. And
Wow.
she gets into it. Play the video, please. I think she talks a little bit about it in this clip, her
Okay.
background.
I'm so curious.
New York. And I'm going to talk to you about my novel, Carmen and Grace, which is out in April 2023. And without getting too much into time leaps and spoilers, I want to introduce you to Carmen
Uh-oh.
and
I don't
Grace,
think
two
I can.
cousins who have been
Okay, there we go.
more like sisters, who've really clung to each other through a very difficult childhood. And we begin with Carmen reflecting on the trouble that they got themselves into and how she will now have to manage a life um, beyond the definitions that Grace offered. But where we really begin the story, we can think about it structurally, kind of like the cycle of the moon. It's their rise to power. It's how the woman who had protected them and sort of lured them into this underground drug trade, but really taken care of them, guided them, and helped them grow into competent women, is mysteriously killed. And this kind of sends Carmen and Grace off into two directions where they are both imagining out. And Carmen imagines out as a complete escape from this life that they've built. And Grace imagines out as getting out from under the danger of Toro, who is the son of the woman that they lived with and who really brought her into the fold. from Carmen's perspective, we get their rise to power as a group of grown young women who enter into places where they don't belong, selling drugs in the most dangerous of places, Wall Street, banks, the suburbs, places that really take them out of their comfort zones, but also allow them a massive expansion. And what we get from Grace's perspective is their childhood and their early youth and how they found themselves in such vulnerable places that what Doña Durca and Toro offered seemed like a real solution to the problems that they had in their early teens.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a clip. And now I'll have that clip linked, Angel, because I think
Okay.
furthermore, she'll get into like what made her write it, to your point,
Sure.
because that's was a really good part of it, the interview. But so the
Can I ask, in the story, does it flip back and forth chapter to chapter with Grace and Carmen?
yes,
Wow. Okay.
it gets into,
Hmm.
so it goes the first it's not every single chapter. There's a good amount of it where Carmen talks, then it's Grace getting into it, and then it goes back.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there
Hmm.
are different time frames, and like you're getting, sometimes you may read something that is not fully clear from Grace's end, and then Carmen will
Right.
talk about.
Hmm. Hmm.
So like the first 150 pages was Carmen, and it was started in 2014. And
Okay.
then it gets into the Daughters of the Wild Mother, according to Grace,
Hmm.
1992 to 2000, and then it'll go back.
Gotcha. Okay. I
Yeah.
am so intrigued by this.
Yes.
I'm going to
So,
get this. Hmm. Yeah. How long are you finished it already?
yes, I read this one late last year,
Okay.
and yeah, and it was 385 pages, and I read the physical book.
Okay.
I'm curious how the audio book is. I took that clip. I was researching, and I found that walking the spiral. I remember talking to my godmother about that, because that's
Hmm.
what they had me at, walking the spiral, because the way that there was something, let me see if I could find it.
Now, I may be a little bit ignorant here on this. What do you
Mhm.
mean by walking the spiral? What is that?
So when the woman came into the prison, she walked in and she wrote on the board, walking the spiral, and then drew a big spiral underneath it. And
Okay.
then she wrote instinct and injured. So she was doing like this.
Okay, so this isn't like a physical walk around
No,
like a labyrinth or anything.
no, it was just
Okay.
the way that she described um the the way that she described it, and it's only like the first couple of pages, and I was
Hmm.
trying to find the part where
No worries, because I am going to get this book. I am so intrigued by that.
yeah, because
Walking the spiral.
it was kind of like a way that she was talking about how we get in and out of um situations.
Okay.
And yeah, and I was like, it was just a really powerful like metaphor for
Yes, that's what I'm
it.
drawn to.
Yeah,
It's the
that's
metaphor. Uh-huh.
yeah, it's a metaphor for things. And I was looking for the part where there was a part where she really explains it. So when
Okay.
you let's see. Yeah, I can't find it right now. But when you read it, you'll understand what she means by the spiral. That
Okay.
And she doesn't want these women to come out of prison and allow themselves
Right.
to go back in.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
because they haven't really figured out what caused it. And she's
Yes.
like, you might think you figured it out, but you might need
Hmm.
to go deeper and to figure
Hmm.
out why you ended up in that situation.
Right.
And even the part where she was saying we sometimes confuse survival instincts from thriving instincts, or
Mm.
we do things to survive when we're younger, especially in these environments of like poverty and some
Mhm.
of the things that the girls that are getting into these situations, their backgrounds,
Mhm.
maybe they were fighters and they had to fight a lot. And then
Mhm.
as adult women, they still try to bring
Bring
that
that.
to,
Mhm.
know,
Yep. Yep.
other,
Mhm.
they don't let go of those
Mhm.
getting into that. And that was why
Yes.
it drew me in from the beginning. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
okay. And then
Mhm.
then I got into the plot of it and things like that.
Mhm. There's so much to say about this, and I want to ask you this question as a reader when because you are an avid reader, you always have been, you just devour books. But when you were selecting this book to read, was it just something you just randomly stumbled over, or did you see a description of it in your like library, what have you, or were you intentional, like I want to read more books by authors of different backgrounds? Because I know you were mentioning that in the beginning about, diversifying our reading interests, and not getting stuck in just reading one type of book. But were you intentional that you wanted to read this, or just like that you found it somewhere else, or you just stumbled on it?
I stumbled on it. I was in Barnes and Noble, and I do
Okay.
judge books by sometimes covers pull me in. So I
Mm-hmm.
was there, and the cover, I said, Carmen and Grace. I saw the cover that was like really pretty, and
Mm-hmm.
I was in a rich, like a upscale Barnes and Noble here in
Okay.
Rochester. So I
Mm-hmm.
was standing next to a white guy, and I picked it up and I read the jacket, and I was like, "This sounds good." I was glad of it, and I'm like, two, and in a way, it seems so far removed. Two girls that are drug dealers.
Right.
I was like, really?
Right.
And so I picked it up and I noticed that the guy, after I put it back, after I grabbed it because I was like, I'm gonna buy this.
Mm-hmm.
He went and he pulled it up too because he wanted to see
Okay.
what I was reading. So I don't know if he bought it too, but he
Right.
wanted to, he was like, being
Yeah.
nosy about what I was looking at.
Right.
So maybe I saw this book Instagrammer that I follow. She said, if you want to help amplify authors of color, go to a bookstore, grab a book that you think more people should read, and put it on the main area. So she did that, and then
Right.
leave.
Right.
And she put that on her. She was in Europe and she went into a bookstore and she grabbed a book by a Jamaican writer and put it there and then she slid out. It was cute.
That is so funny, but it's the truth, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah.
it the truth? And Barnes and Noble is right over by uh down the block. I'm going to go right on in there. I haven't read good fiction in a long, long time. Good fiction. And so I'm so excited about this because I also feel like it's such a timely read as we're talking a lot about just, women's issues and concerns and recidivism and all
Mhm.
those things. It's just so,
Mhm.
I'm just really intrigued by it. And I feel like this is something that it resonates for me because of that spiral concept that we were just
Yeah.
talking about. Yep.
That
Oh, here it is, the themes. Okay.
right, the
Hmm.
themes,
Yep.
exactly. And there's a lot of things because loyalty is a huge one and in
Mhm.
which actually a lot of the books that I'm gonna be covering, loyalty is a strong theme, but Carmen and Grace, there's the loyalty of that Grace had to this woman, Durga, who was the Dandada who died. And
Mhm.
she feels like now she has to be the one because they formed this whole women's, I don't know if I don't want to say gang, but they were like
Mhm. Mhm.
women's, and they lived together. They, some of them were mothers. They took care of each other's children, so they were really linked. But then it was like Carmen wanted to leave because she fell in
Mhm.
love with artists. She didn't want to continue
Mhm.
in that. So who are you loyal to? But then it was survival is a big theme of this, protection. The
I
other thing
love
that
that
I
quote.
appreciated, yes, that was
Mhm.
that Dr. Guerrero, the woman that went into the prison.
Mhm.
Spirituality is really big in this book. She
Mhm.
gets to Yamea and these different practices of like the Puerto Rican spiritual
Goddesses. Mhm.
goddesses. So
Mhm.
learn about that. Um, they have Durga, the goddess of feminine power and strength. So
Mhm.
when I was reading it, it made me go down a whole rabbit hole of learning more about the Durga goddess.
Shaquana,
So
that's exactly where my mind is going because I was curious. I said, I wonder if, and I know you know this, that is, she's the goddess. I think it's a Hindu goddess. Yeah,
yes,
Hindu goddess
mhm,
of powerful and all. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, this is taking me back to yoga theory, Ayurveda, the
yes,
goddesses, the healing goddesses. And I just took a little screenshot of that quote because I that is really sitting with me like you got stuck in this survival, you know, and I'm thinking about some of the work that I do where women get stuck,
oh,
where women get stuck in our lives. And in their case, it was, the drug dealing and all these other things and survival. But sometimes we just get stuck in our day to day routines, our day to day lives, the things that we feel like we can't do. Simple things, like I'll just share my own little personal, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do or paperwork. Let me just get to that paperwork and then I'll go to the gym, or let me get to that paperwork and then I'll do my meal prep. But
mhm,
uh, that's stuck in a different chapter of my life. There's no reason for me to feel that way. I don't have little kids at home. I don't have any school shopping I need to do. Why do I get stuck in that mindset that I can't do the things I need to do and
yeah,
still prioritizing work and all those? Like sometimes I feel like I'm still stuck in that raising children stage
yeah.
of my life, and I'm not in that stage anymore. So
You got
I don't want to just
adult
rant or keep going
children.
on and
No,
on, but
I feel like I feel that way too, and I still cook.
yeah,
No, we got adult children, but it's like we were so embedded in that stage for so long. It's like,
right,
we
right,
get, it's like how I had said on my birthday, I still feel like it's the back to school time, you know.
yes,
And even
yes.
though I do have Deja is a junior in college, but it's
Oh,
different. But it's like that feeling like how you used to feel when it was the back to school, you got to do the shopping and get ready for all those conferences. And
I know. Why are you still thinking about that?
the other thing that I have felt this is because of COVID. COVID somehow changed I felt a little bit like a time warp. It's
Yeah,
been 5 years, but
yeah.
in a way it feels like it's been 5 years, and in a way for me it doesn't. So
Hmm.
that weird time warp of, and it had to do with things like the way that we changed our patterns of working from home for some of us,
Yes.
like doing things more remotely,
Hmm.
and uh, the different, it put me in a groundhog day
Yeah.
thing where I was like, am I living the same day?
Yeah.
So then you could get stuck where you form these habits, and then you're like,
Yes.
so that was, so yeah, so we do, all of us have to look at like how we're holding on to things no longer serving us.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is going to be a good read. I can see that now. Just the themes and the spirituality is what draws me in.
she interwove all of that together. And if for people who may have liked The Coldest Winter Ever, how that was, it was urban and it was,
That's what I was thinking
yeah,
of.
it's
Hmm.
kind of like that, but and then they're Puerto Rican, so you're getting some Puerto Rican culture, you're getting the
Hmm.
spirituality, but you're getting these two different stories.
Hmm.
Yeah, she did a really good job. I hope she writes another piece of
Hmm.
fiction.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
she's a writer, and then she teaches writing, and she has
Right.
like different short stories and stuff like that. So I just also enjoyed learning about her as an author, and I'm going to
Hmm.
reach out to her to see if maybe I can interview her.
Oh, that would be fantastic. And please do tag me if you do, because
Oh,
I would
oh,
love to not
you
only
do
support
that.
the support your podcast here, but also just tune in and hear her writing process, the craft, what brings her to the craft, the story. If you do, please tag me because I
I
will
will.
be in on
I'm
that.
going to have you there. I know
Yeah.
AJ. I know what AJ's going to say. He's going to be like, "Angel got to be part of that."
For sure. Like, this is the season of my life that I'm getting back to my writing in a disciplined fashion. I reached out to the Writers Center and, I'm going to take maybe a class here or there, but I'm excited about your show, and I'm so excited about just getting back to like reading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Tati on the X says, I'm from the Bronx. As an Afro Latina, life in the city is always 6 degrees of separation between thriving and surviving. It's real
Mhm.
out here.
Yeah.
Thank you for that comment, Tati.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, so let's see, what else do I have? Oh, I wanted to pose this question. If anyone ever, if you feel so inclined, have you ever felt the need to cut ties with someone who you felt an obligation to, of loyalty to? That's I'm putting that out there. That's one of the questions that this book is kind of exploring. So I'll give it a second before we move on because I know sometime I rush to the next segment.
Mhm.
Okay. So if anyone comments on that in the future, because we're gonna load this up. So if we see that, if we see comments from the future, if you're watching this, we'll acknowledge that on our next episode. Okay, so now we're moving into the next book that we're going to review called Anita DeMonte Laughs Last. And this is by her name is Joto Gonzalez. So I'm gonna do her author spotlight. 48. She's from Brooklyn, New York, Puerto Rican and Mexican parents. She went to Brown University. She got her BA. She's the author of two books. I read them both, Anita DeMonte's Last Laugh and Olga Dies Dreaming. She also writes frequently for The Atlantic. I'm going to play the first 2 minutes. Um, but before we get into that, I'll share with you how I got this book. So I was in my local library and they have a new releases section. So I saw the book and I was like, oh, that's an interesting name. So I read the jacket and it was talking about the plot being about two, it's two stories of two Latino women. The first one is this young lady, Raquel, who she's going to an Ivy League university. She's an art history student. That pulled me in because I'm like, huh, a minority girl studying art history.
Mhm.
Okay. Then it talked about the other piece was this woman who's this Cuban artist who died mysteriously, and people thought like her husband pushed her off, killed her. And she was like a big artist way back in the, was it the 80s? But her story got buried. And nobody ever heard of her until Raquel, who was the student at Brown, who was studying, uncovered her story and it reemerged it and brought it back. So I was like, I'm gonna read this. So I'm reading this, and she's making these references to she's from New York City. She's going to a PWI, and she goes back to Brooklyn on the weekends. She's listening to 90s hip hop. And I'm like, I feel connected to Raquel. Why do I feel so connected to her? It felt like before I even knew the age of the author, I felt like I was like Raquel at that time. Even though I was at a different university, there was so many things that I felt in common with her on. So as I'm reading the book, I was like, I'm going to write my old college roommates who are both Puerto Rican and tell them about this amazing book that I'm reading. And then, so I wrote Dana, and she goes, you want to hear something funny? I grew up with the author. We went to the same elementary school together. I was
what?
And she was like, her first book, she was like, if you like that, you should read her first book, Olga Dies Dreaming. And she said, as a matter of fact, she was gonna go to one of her book events, but she had a death in the family, which I had just saw her write about on Facebook. And I'm like, that's why I felt so connected.
Wow.
My college roommate is friends with the author. So
wow.
Yeah. So but I'm gonna play a clip from Poured Over where she talks a little bit more about this plot.
I'm the producer and host of Poured Over. And remember Olga Dies Dreaming? Remember that amazing, amazing voicey novel that made all of us stop in our tracks? Of course you do, because Xochitl Gonzalez is awesome. And there's the new novel, Anita de Monte. More importantly, though, I want to talk about the evolution of this book, because I learned some stuff prepping for the show that I did not know about the creation of the new novel.
Oh.
So we've got to go back to Brown for a second.
Okay.
In the 90s, when no one
Yes.
has cell phones and we're all barbarians.
Yeah, barbarians, literally. Oh.
We were all barbarians
I
in the
know,
90s.
and we left. Remember, we DM'd by leaving whiteboard messages on each other's dorm room doors.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We were very lo-fi. We were super lo-fi. But we have to go back to Brown.
Yeah.
It all starts there. So tell us a story.
I mean, I was like a major art history nerd.
Mm-hmm.
I just loved it and was like completely obsessed.
Mm-hmm.
And I took I basically exploited the open curriculum to become an amateur art historian. I just took every art history class. And for people who don't know, the open curriculum just means that Brown has no requirements. So and that was what made me pick it, because I, in a pre-STEM world, was like, I hate math and I don't care. And I'm going to avoid it for as much as I possibly can, including the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's why my accountant hates me. But I basically was like, I love this. I fell in love with it, and I did art history and visual art. And I lived in this one building that's now super old. Like literally, I think it's like a, sort of like a has-been on this campus that's been so renovated. But I just stayed in this little building on the RISD side of campus, because Brown is right near this art school named RISD. And then on the weekends, my friend hosted this radio show, because the Brown radio station, like 6 days a week, was like an alternative rock pop station. And then on the seventh day, they played like all hip hop and R&B, and then jazz and gospel, and all, like it was called the 360-degree Black Experience in Sound. And my best guy friend, was like their star DJ, and I would go and I'd help him pick the new records, and we'd all hang out at the station. So Sunday was like my kind of back to the planet day. And then the rest of the week, I just was sort of like by myself a lot, like in this little art history world, like really where none of my friends were. It was a really segregated.
Yeah, that clip. it was a lot of clips that I could have shared, but
Mhm.
that just gave some more background. So
Mm.
I'll talk a little bit more about the book. 1998, you got Raquel. She's a Puerto Rican working class, first generation college student at Brown University. At first, she plans to follow her advisor's footsteps. She has this like white male advisor who she had a good relationship with, and she wants to study architecture. But she discovers this brilliant but forgotten Cuban American conceptual artist named Anita de Monte. And that makes her that, and she gets that through a Black woman that she was interning with. Then there's all of this information about Anita, who was Cuban, and she had fell in love with this other artist. She ended up dying suddenly. They think he might have had something to do with her death. So the novel addresses these issues from multiple points of view and two timelines, similar to Carmen and Grace,
Mm.
Anita and Jack's romance.
Mm.
But it's a lot about like privilege, and because
Mhm.
Raquel ends up dating a very wealthy white guy.
Mhm.
There's this part where she brings, oh, I think her mother, she was in a single, her mother was raising her, and her mother she had her sister, and they came up to visit her, and he came around that day, and then they ended up like going out, and the sister sized him up, and she was like, he's not good enough for you.
Mm.
It was like, even though you would think that the way that we tend to think about things is it's always um, people who may be poorer trying
Mhm.
to accept it by whiteness, wealth.
Mhm.
In this instance, her sister was looking at him as a person, like his morals and character.
Mhm.
He was an artist too, which is what drew him to Raquel, but he
Mhm.
wasn't that good of an artist. He was mediocre, but he
Mhm.
got a lot of opportunities through his wealth.
Mm.
He had a little bit of an entitled, bratty mentality, and that showed how he treated Raquel. He even
Mm.
Raquel, Raquel had this long hair. It was really, really long, and he suggested that she cut it. Like he had
Mm.
these, it was almost like envious ways.
Mm. Mhm.
So Raquel had to, she went through a lot in navigating being in this Ivy League institution and
Mhm.
being isolated. And she couldn't call her mother and sister about some of those things because they didn't relate to it.
Right.
She had to
Mhm.
go through that by herself. So yeah, so some of the themes that I really liked about this were art history, because I'm fascinated with that, and it's an
Mhm.
area I don't know as much as I want to know about. The
Mhm. Mhm.
clash between art and commerce, um,
Mm.
gender, race,
Wow.
um, class intersections, higher education,
Mhm.
domestic violence, because when you get into the artist that died,
Mhm.
uh, there was some domestic violence there. And then
Mm.
you're learning again about Puerto Rican culture, and you're learning
Mhm.
Cuban history.
Mhm.
So it was another really, I loved it. I really, and then I read this, and then I went and read Olga Dies Dreaming, which is what I'm going to cover on next week's book. It's
Oh,
awesome,
okay.
really good. But yeah, so I wanted to stop a minute and I wanted to ask you, Angel,
Uh-huh.
and who inspires you as an artist?
As an artist,
Yeah, what are, okay, let me rephrase it. What
mhm.
artist inspires you?
Well, I love the visual arts. I'm very much into um, themes that explore religion, history, culture, I think, I'm drawn to a lot of the Mayan history and Mayan culture. So
Yeah.
I've been looking at Mexican artists, Mayan artists, indigenous artists, Native American. This year I wanted to get down, and I don't think I'm going to make it to Santa Fe because I wanted to
Mm,
see more of that indigenous art. So
yeah.
the visual arts really do inspire me a lot. But as it relates to culture and spirituality, I think
Mhm.
that's where I am right now. And who are the artists now? It's interesting that when I think about my inspiration, I think about writers. So I think about those artists, not necessarily painters or visual artists, but I think about the artists that are writers. And many of those include Arundhati Roy, Alice Walker, always. I have everything that she has written. Um, a lot of of course, posthumously, Toni Cade Bambara, Toni Morrison. Those are the women writers that really inspire me. And I think the reason for that is their staying power. They wrote from a place of timelessness. The themes, Octavia Butler. I
Yeah.
mean, if we're not living that now, and it really speaks to me that someone can create something that is just absolutely timeless like that. And the other artists who inspire me from a different perspective, I was thinking a lot about Sade, and I was thinking a lot about Anthony Bourdain, and I was thinking a lot about Prince. And I know they're three different people, different things, but their art, Anthony Bourdain's art was his food, his culinary adventures, how he thought about food and the making of food and the intersection of food and culture. That food is more than just nutrition and sitting down to eat, but it is a cultural experience. So him, and then I think about Sade and her music and how timeless it is, and how we all just sit every day waiting and hoping that she'll make another album because her music really is timeless. And then I think about Prince, just someone who, as an artist, his range was just huge,
Mhm.
and his mentality that it was important for him to own his art, for him to be able to make decisions about his art, um, and
Yeah.
agency from that place of this is my creation and this is important to me, how it is represented, the financial piece to it. So when I think about that inspiration, it's comes from different places and different genres for different reasons. And
Yeah.
for myself, my commitment to my own art right now is that timelessness, to be
Mhm.
able to write from a place that 25 years from now, someone will say, as we say about Octavia Butler, wow, she was ahead of her time.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Thank you. I love that. I love what you were saying about timelessness. And I want to share with the readers that Angel is so much, a she's a healer, she's a nurse practitioner, but you don't maybe not know she's a writer, and we shared a writing, a love of poetry together, and she
Yes.
published a work of art that I still have, butterflies. It was In Time of Butterflies.
Yes. And then there were
And then
butterflies.
there were
Mhm.
butterflies, and there's a poem that you wrote, and I know I may have shared before how it really touched me, the poem you wrote about your father, and
Thank you so much.
in Vietnam, and
Thank you.
all the black men that served in Vietnam and died in Vietnam.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Thank
that's
you.
why I'm reigniting. Like we were talking about earlier, we go through different phases and stages of our life, and I've reconnected with the writing, the poetry, and the books because I had I wasn't as much doing that for about 10 years because I had other things I was doing.
Mhm.
And then I'm so excited to reconnect with that
Yes.
I'm writing more as well, and just enjoying it, enjoying other
Yes.
works of art. And I need that now, and I feel like we need it in our lives
Yes.
more. And
And
like you
this
were
is so critical to that, Shaquana, the reading, the quality of books that we read informs our writing. So that's why I'm so grateful for your podcast. I'm just like, oh, this is bringing me back
saying,
to my first love, you know? Yeah. Oh,
Tati,
Frida, someone says.
Frida, the famous Spanish oil painter, all the way up to Basquiat's impression of city culture. They all inspired me to push my brush. Oh, thank you, Tati. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I'll have to hear more about your art. Speaking of that, so this book is actually talking about, even though it's fiction, to make that clear, the person that she's based the Cuban artist on was a real artist. Her name was Ana Mendieta, and she was a Cuban performing artist, a sculpture, painter, and video artist who was best known for her earth body artwork. And she's considered one of the most influential Cuban American artists of the post World War II era. And she was born in Cuba. She lived in the United States, and she started art. And her art was incredible. If you look her up and you
I
see some of
will.
her stuff, and you know what she did? She would use her body as she would go into parts of the world and merge and fuse herself with parts of nature.
Wow.
And this was some, I mean, she would be like maybe nude, and
Hmm.
she got stuff from the Nile. She went into South America. In a
Wow.
way, I can't understand why she's not bigger, because I was
Yeah.
like, yeah. And so part of the reason why Jito, the author, wrote this book was to
Is to bring
elevate
awareness.
her. Yeah.
Hmm.
And there
Hmm.
was some controversy with her estate because she used some information that was public knowledge, but there's so much going on with how this woman died. And
Mm.
because, all right, just not to give a spoiler, but in the book, the woman that once she died, the Cuban artist, because her husband was this wealthy, white, privileged man, he did not want her art out there. So he brokered a deal
Oh.
with all of the different artists,
Hmm.
the in the art world, like the decision makers. And you learn in this book how you learn about that industry,
Hmm.
how people have the power to make or break people.
Hmm.
Came up and they made this deal that they would bury her legacy and no one would know about it, which is why Raquel, who was an art history major, didn't even
Hmm.
know the artist existed.
Wow.
Here's where the story gets funny. It's some fantasy in there. The author is dead, right? I mean, the artist was dead. She comes back as a bat, and she's haunting this man for destroying her legacy because all she needed was, it was almost like a curse. The minute someone found one of her pieces of art or googled her name, she came back to life in a sense.
Mm.
All she needed was people to keep bringing her up, which started to happen when Raquel started digging into it. But I have
Wow.
to show you about the real person, and her name is Ana Mendieta. So can we play that clip?
The Embassy Institute, and I assist in research about the relationship between architecture and ecology. Today, I'm speaking about Ana Mendieta's Nile-born. I grew up in Greece. I remember sleeping at the beach and watching the stars at night, and this constant connection with the water and with the sand. Greece is a country that lives on its ruins. The ground is a primordial archive of many histories. So the connection with the earth, with the land, was always very present. And I feel like that what we have lost today is that kind of synergy between the human and the landscape. Now the humans seems to have alienated themselves from the land, from the ground, and especially now in the era of climate change. I was very concerned on how can we actually reestablish this connection with the earth. I came across Ana Mendieta's Silueta series, a series of earth bodyworks that Ana Mendieta created between 1974 to 1985. Most of them are pieces created in the land where she uses her body and natural material from the surroundings. She used to say that with the Silueta series, her body becomes one with nature and nature becomes one with her body. And this is so beautiful to think how bodies and nature collaborate. It's such a fragile object. It's a very thin wooden piece covered with sand. She used sand from the Nile because the object carries the special energy of the landscape, so it brings the vibration of the land. It's ready to collapse, but yet it holds such a powerful structure. The form represents her own body, but I see it in a more universal way. I always imagining it in the actual landscape. What if we put the piece there? What is going to happen? Is it going to dissolve because it's made of sand and return to the ground? And this idea of a human trace that in a way it's so fragile and so ephemeral. We come to the earth, live for a while, leave our traces, and then return to the earth.
Yeah, so that is from the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, and
Mm-hmm.
the exhibit is How Ana Mandiata's Work Reestablishes a Connection with the Earth.
Wow. Mm. Got to get back up to MoMA. Oh, so much. So much. Oh,
What do you
wow.
think, Angel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I mean that connection, um, when I was in college, I took this like class on, it was kind of weird in a good way, but it because I was in like this interdisciplinary track for a while, and then I came out of that because I think it was
Mm-hmm.
too abstract.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in it, I took a performing art type class that talked about how you use your body in as like a form of art.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a cool subcategory. I mean, in a way, it's like dance does that, but
Mm-hmm.
dance is more, dance, like
Mm-hmm.
dance is dance. But this is, you may be using it in all sorts of ways. It reminds me of a book I read last year. It was called Martyr. It
Mm-hmm.
was written by this Iranian man, and it was a book award finalist. And he was he was obsessed with martyrs because his mother had died. He had believed that his mother died on a plane that exploded.
Mm.
He ended up going to the Brooklyn Museum where he met this artist who was dying of cancer. And she decided that her very last exhibit would be herself. So she went and made this exhibit with the museum in Brooklyn to just die. I mean, just have her life, the last 30 days of her life, she would just be in the museum all day long, living there. And during the day, people could come and interact with someone who was near death.
Wow.
So that was like, I was like, we're all works of art.
Yes.
Walking
Mm-hmm.
around being works of art. We think about art as separate, and there are expressions of it, like you were talking about Angel, I mean,
Hmm.
prints and visual. But then it's like your own self
Yes.
is an art. It's just art.
Hmm.
Imagine
Yes.
if we thought about it like that, how would the world be? And then the other pieces connecting it to ecology,
Hmm.
and because we really need to clean up the planet.
Hmm.
So I really appreciate that this author, I mean this artist Anna, was onto that in the 70s, and the stuff looks amazing, like that one with the floral.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
you know,
Yes.
so I really thank this book for putting me on to Anna.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, and that's what I really love about.
Adding that to my collection. Hmm.
Yeah,
To my reading list.
yeah, that was a good one. She's a great writer too.
Hmm.
So, and I'm going to talk about her book Olga Dies Dreaming next week.
Next week.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So any more comments out there before we wrap up? This was a great I was gonna do a playlist, so I'll have more time to do it next week because I
Okay.
usually have a musical playlist of music that ties to the different books. But
Okay.
yeah, so next week we'll discuss the Grand Paloma Resort. Oh my God,
Oh my goodness.
this was good. And this one
Okay.
just came out a couple of weeks ago. And it's like, if anyone out there seen the White Lotus series? It was like,
Mm-mm.
it came, it's good. It's a film series that comes on. Oh gosh, what channel does it come on? I can't remember, but it's been 3 seasons, and every season they go to a different 5-star resort. The first season they were in Hawaii. The second season they were in Italy, and the third season they were in Thailand. But this book takes place in the Dominican Republic, and
Mm.
it's about these two sisters that are working on this resort, and a bunch of stuff happens with this resort. So it gets into a lot of great themes too. So we'll be
Okay.
talking about that next week, along with Olga Dies Dreaming.
Okay.
Yes. So any last comments, producer?
No, I think we're all good.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I hope you all enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you back next week to continue celebrating Latina Heritage Month. And thank
Yay. Thank you so much for a wonderful show, Shaquana. Thank you. And added to my reading list, I'm going to drive right now to the bookstore and get your first recommendation and the second.
you.
I'll
You got to
support
tell me
both
how
of
you like
those.
it. Okay. All right. And have a beautiful Saturday, sis.
Thank
And,
you. You
and
too.
everyone out there, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yes. Many blessings to your producer and your family.